Hey up friends, how you doing? It's Matt. You're listening to episode 54 of the Looking Sideways Action Sports podcast. Thanks for listening to this one, and I hope you enjoy it as usual. I reckon you will as well, because my guest this week is surfer, father, rancher, director and Patagonia ambassador Keith Malloy, who I welcomed onto the show during my recent visit to Newquay with my friends from Patagonia, who invited me down there for the launch of their first European worn wear tour and to chat to Keith while I was at it. And a nice little jolly it was too. Now, if you're a regular listener to the show or you follow me on social media, you'll know that I've been chatting a lot recently about how I've been approached by brands who want to get more involved in the podcast, who want to sponsor certain episodes and so on. Now, I'm going to explore this topic more thoroughly in the outro. But yeah, full disclosure for this one, I decided to accept the invitation from Patagonia to head down to Newquay because naturally I was pretty keen to speak to Keith, who's somebody that I've long had on the radar as a guest for the show. So who's Keith Malloy? Well, he's one third of the legendary Malloy brothers who've been involved in the scene since they were kids and have come to symbolise a particular type of adventurous exploratory surfing in which an elemental connection with nature is as important as the act of riding waves itself. Now, that's not to say that the brothers aren't absolute frothers, as I can attest after being lucky enough to surf with Keith after our chat. But yeah, between them, the brothers have done just about everything there is to do in surfing, and Keith's career is a case in point. Now, I reckon you can broadly divide his surfing life into three parts, really. There's his 20s, which he spent on the tour, following the contest circuit and all that entails. Then, as he approached 30, Keith made an abrupt left turn, dropping out of that tour and reconnecting with those aforementioned surfing values. And it was a move that saw him embark upon a decade of wave chase into some of the remotest, coldest climes on the planet. It also coincided with the Malloys as a trio moving to Patagonia to help the brand shape their entire surf category, something they've done ever since, and which has seen them drive the brand to their current position in the surf market. Now, as you'll hear Keith explain, that move was driven by the chance to be innovative and environmentally conscious, and he's since then had a hand in almost every significant development by the brand in surfing, from the establishment of the warm wear concept, which was actually Keith and his wife Lauren's idea, to the launch of the brand's Ulex suits and the recent announcement that the full Patagonia wetsuit line will be fair trade certified. Now, as Keith settles into his fifth decade as a husband and father, life has changed once again. And in this conversation, we covered all this ground and plenty more. As I discovered, Keith and the brothers are what you might call auto-didacts, happy to turn their hand to anything, self-taught and with the confidence to work it out as they go along. Now, it's a really lovely, ruminative episode, this. Me and Keith had a great chat, which I very much enjoyed, and I also enjoyed the surf that we had later on. Like I say, I'll be back later on with more chit-chat, but in the meantime, here's my conversation with Keith Malloy on his new decade. Enjoy. Keith, how you doing?
I'm good.
Yeah, straight into town.
Straight into town, a little jet lagged, but happy to be here.
Yeah, and you've scored yourself quite an apartment here. We're overlooking Newquay Harbour, and it's beautiful. Yeah,
I was blown away on how beautiful this spot is.
Lucky Airbnb by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
Doesn't always work out like this, particularly in this town.
Right.
Yeah, and so you're over for a few days?
We are. Yep, we're just here for a few days. Hooking up with the Patagonia crew here, and I'm going to be going to the Worn Wear surf events, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah. So can you tell me a little bit about that? About what you're going to be doing with Warm Wear while you're over?
Yeah, I mean, basically, we're just gonna get everybody together and talk about the whole wear and wear concept, and how it relates to surfing as well.
Yeah.
So I mean, it basically relates to any clothing or anything that you can fix that you can wear.
Yeah.
We'll probably show a little film or two about wear and wear, and kind of just celebrate it and have a good time with everybody in town.
Yeah. So where else are you going to be? Because there's a little tour going on, right? So are you just for this stop, or are you checking in anywhere else?
Yeah. So we're also going to Manchester.
My hometown. There
yes.
you go.
Is it? All right.
Yeah. Classic surf spot.
Nice. And then we're going on to Dublin to do an event there as well.
Okay.
So I believe that's our 3 events. I think so.
Nice. And so I'm right in thinking that you and Lauren effectively came up with the warm wear concept. Is that right?
Yeah, so it's true. Basically, my wife Lauren is from New England, northeast of the United States, which is really into their gear. It gets cold up there.
Yeah.
And they're into Patagonia gear as well. Anyways, Lauren had a jacket that she'd had since she was 13 years old, and she still wore it and worked perfectly. And there was some passing of it around with her friends and family, but she ended up with it. Anyways, we started talking about that story of that jacket and how special it was to her. And next thing you know, we were talking about, hey, we should start a little blog about used clothing and what it means to you, and can celebrate the repairs done on it and things like that.
And the stories behind it.
Yeah,
which is one of the really great things about the concept, isn't it? Because I had a little look at some of the little stories in prep for chatting to you, and yeah, it's great, isn't it? Because you can really see where people have made them completely personal and related them to the experiences that they've had, which was presumably the idea originally, to try and uncover those stories, right?
Exactly. I mean, we all have those items of clothing that we just have held on to forever and have some special journeys we've made in them, or maybe we got them from our father or our brother, and it's kind of in ways you wouldn't think that it would be that interesting, but people can relate to it and have similar stories. And when we started the blog, it just had a really great reaction. People wanted to tell their stories too, so it was pretty neat.
Yeah, I mean, what I like about it's quite democratic, isn't it? It's not about doing the gnarliest trips, or it's about those experiences that basically everybody that has a love for the outdoors kind of shares, whatever their kind of level, if you like, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
So have you got a piece that you that would fit the worn wear bill?
I do. I mean, one of the first pieces I got was kind of one of the puff jackets, and I mean, I have a few different pieces definitely that fit in the worn wear category, but I mean, it's just one of those. It's like a hooded jacket that I've just had forever, and it's the easiest to travel in, and it's pretty tattered now, but if I look back on the one thing I've worn the most and had probably the best trips on, it's that one. It's kind of like a army green colored, really, it's that thing you can trust, in your bag when you're not sure what the temperatures are going to be. It's that one piece for me that I can always trust will keep me warm and keep me comfortable.
Yeah. So is the warm wear concept, is that kind of emblematic of the way that you've always worked with Patagonia? Like, you've been able to come up with concepts and ideas and have the freedom to explore them to the fullest, because that it's quite a nice thing, isn't it, that you were like, here's an idea, and now it's like this, effectively one of the main marketing drives of the entire brand, right? Like, globally, it's one of the things that people definitely know the brand for today.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I feel like my brothers and I, we started at Patagonia 14 years ago, and the main reason we were brought in was for the surf side of things.
Well, it was a big deal, wasn't it, at the time?
It was. I mean, I think a lot of people hadn't heard of Patagonia.
Yeah, didn't really have the presence back then in the surf area.
No, and we had been so entrenched in the surf world for decades almost, and then all of a sudden, I think when folks heard the Malloys are leaving to Patagonia, a lot of people are like, what's Patagonia? Well,
if you do a Google, which I've been doing the last couple of days in prep for this, the Surfer magazine still come up, it's like headlight, like Malloys leave Hurley for Patagonia, it was big news, wasn't it?
I mean, this is how funny it is. When that headline came out, people thought we were moving to Chile to Patagonia.
Right.
Like, they didn't even know what Patagonia was.
Because they couldn't make the connection.
It was totally confusing to them. So,
right.
So I'm kind of proud of starting with it at that level in surfing and bringing it to where it's at, where I think now it's a pretty respected brand. And the reason why is because of the philosophy, because the time we were leaving, those other sponsors, the surf industry just didn't care whatsoever about the environment or having a product that lasted, So back when we made that switch to Patagonia, we knew the philosophy. Patagonia is have the best product and be environmentally minded. So I mean, that was a really exciting time for us.
So that was important to you guys.
Oh yeah.
You were looking for that kind. Had you reached that point in your careers then, which I'm sure we'll get to, but this was chiming with where you guys wanted to be with your surfing personally as well?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely were pretty disenchanted with the whole clothing and sponsorship and the way it was working in the surf world. I mean, we had a great run and we were very lucky to have the sponsors we had, but I think at that point we were thinking could be a better way to do it all, you know.
Yeah.
And we just lucked out because we connected with Patagonia, which for me was like the perfect company to be behind and like feel good about what you're doing.
Yeah. Did it feel like a risk, given that the offering at the time was pretty embryonic, let's say? You know, there's a lot of work to do, let's put it that way.
It did feel like a risk because it was I mean, Patagonia had dabbled in surf before and kind of failed, and so it was definitely a risk, and we left our other sponsors that were more high paying,
Sure.
you know, to take this risk. So,
Yeah.
So it was a risk, but when Christiane and I talked about it together, we were like 100% all in, feeling like for the long term this would be the best decision for us.
Yeah. And were you quite forthright in the way that you wanted to do it? Did you have a clear vision?
I think the vision was just to be involved in any way possible, you know, from surfboard design to wetsuits to clothing, to marketing, to just the overall feel of the brand. We just wanted to be as involved as we could, I would say, and have as much influence as we could.
I'm interested in what you were saying about being disenchanted with the position you were at in surfing, because obviously you'd been on the tour, you'd had a, you know, conventionally, if you like, really successful career up to that point, which presumably you'd spent your life working towards, because, you know, it's no easy thing to achieve that. What in particular was it that you were becoming disillusioned with?
So I think that it was a combination of things. One of them was I was competing nonstop, you know, just like on the world tour, which was a great test and something I'm glad I did, but I'd been doing it long enough where I felt like I was on the hamster wheel basically, right, and kind of losing the reasons why I started surfing, which was far from competition. I think that you start surfing for almost opposite reasons that you would compete, because you want to be out in the ocean, you want to be out in nature, enjoying yourself and not worrying about anything. And so basically at that same stage where I was completely burnt out on the competitive surfing and nonstop competitions and traveling, was also the times that my brothers and I were realizing that the companies we are working for kind of just had one goal in mind, is to make money and you know,
sell shit
and then obviously we were the puppets of that, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm not that bitter about it. I mean, how I'm talking about right now, it sounds like I'm like bitter or something. I'm not. I mean, it's
perspective, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now you can probably look at it and see it for what it is. I'm
yeah.
sure at the time it was probably less clear.
And in the big picture of things, I was lucky son of a bitch to be getting to surf around the world and travel and all that. But at the same time, I saw an opportunity to do it in a little better way, I think.
So that connection that you're talking about, that, you know, you mentioned it earlier, like this reason you got into surfing, was that there from the beginning, or was that something that you came to realize what it meant to you as you surfed more? Yeah.
So I mean, starting surfing, it's just that very simple pleasure of enjoying the ocean and feeling the wave push you and have that feeling of you're almost flying. And there's something about that that I think when you're doing that in the ocean, it disconnects you from everything else, and you really are in the moment.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's the thing that attracted me as a kid. But it should really if you can keep it like that for, that's what it's about. It's about that experience in the ocean and being surrounded by this waves and the power of the ocean, and really being able to be absorbed in that and just be in the moment.
Yeah, I was going to say, be absorbed in that moment, in the present, basically.
Yeah, in the present.
Yeah.
So then yeah, after, and then yeah, competing and doing everything, that was a great fun thing to do to test your ability. Like, I don't look back on competing and wish I didn't do that.
Yeah.
But then it just went full circle to where I felt like I needed to regroup a little bit and get back to basics. And
was the competition thing a bit of a natural progression given where you grew up surfing? Was it just one of those things that you did,
It kind of was in our area. It was funny. My brothers and I, we lived half an hour out from the beach, and we were a little behind in the early days as far as the young surfers and the competitions. And a lot of guys were riding thrusters, and we were still riding single fins, and we were kind of, I think, a little bit like, oh, there's a Malloy boy hillbillies.
The kooky Malloy brothers.
Yeah, totally.
On the single fins ahead of your time.
Yeah.
20 years too early.
Yeah. And then in our teens we kind of caught up, and then we realized we were surfing well and wanted to compete as well at that point. So in general, yeah, California, there was plenty of surf competitions going on.
Yeah, there's a culture that you could tap into.
Yeah, I remember though, like, the U.S. championships were going on when I was like 14 or 15 in my hometown, and we were like at the next beach over just camping and surfing.
Yeah.
Just because we were just not quite tuned into the whole thing yet.
Right.
But my friends later on were like, "Where were you that U.S. championships?" I'm like, "Oh, we didn't even know about it. We were just like at the next beach over surfing."
Right.
Type of thing.
So that was always, again, something that you boys, you linked it to the experience as well.
Yeah.
Of like, go to the beach, camping,
right,
immersing yourself in the outdoors.
Yes.
That was there from the beginning as well.
Definitely. My dad, would drop us off down at the beach and leave us with a cooler and in a tent, and come and check on us every day or stay with us at night when he could. But we definitely, had a neat little experience of surfing that was much more than like pulling up in your car and putting on your suit and get back in your car and go away.
Yeah. So was it your dad that got you into surfing originally?
It was my dad. He was a surfer. He grew up surfing, but it was interesting because his dad wasn't a surfer and didn't really approve of it and wanted my dad to play baseball and things.
Right.
Which made it nice for us because my dad was a surfer. He understood it and really, he was just happy to have us do it. He didn't push us into it or make us do it, but he enjoyed it. And we kind of tagged along and liked to do what he did.
How did he get into it then? Because I'm guessing, what's that, 50s?
So I would say he was born in 47.
Okay, so maybe like late 50s.
60s were kind of his.
Yeah, so that's like the first kind of. Did he get into it through the first sort of boom time then?
Yeah.
That's pretty early on, isn't it?
Pretty
Still,
early
really
on, definitely. And so he grew up in Topanga Canyon, just on the edge of Los Angeles. But there's you know about Topanga Canyon?
Not really.
Okay, it's kind of like a beautiful.
I've never actually been to LA.
Okay.
Which is a huge.
Good for you.
Well, I've never been to California, which
Gotcha.
is incredible, really, because I've been surfing, skateboarding, and snowboarding my whole life.
Wow.
It's one of those really strange things where I'm like, how odd that I've never been there.
Right.
So I'm actually going to try and go in November this year. Yeah. But anyway.
Well, the thing about LA and California is like, it is, I mean, it's crazy big city, but on the outskirts of it, it's actually beautiful. And then people don't know, but if you get to Central or California, it's just wide open and beautiful.
Yeah.
But anyways, the story going back to my dad is he grew up in Topanga Canyon, and it was his family had like a little ranch in that canyon, even though it's not that far out of LA. Still kind of a extra beautiful place. And at the bottom of Topanga Canyon, there's a wave call it Topanga.
Yeah.
And it's a right-hand point.
Okay.
So he, being that was at the bottom of his canyon, he saw some guys surfing and just got into it at a pretty young age.
God, it sounds like the glory years.
It was. I mean, there was no one out there.
Yeah. That sounds like a great time to learn to surf.
Yeah, to the point now where like he doesn't surf anymore because he's like
Too crowded.
way too crowded.
Yeah.
But
Right.
He got us into it.
So he was, and was he in culturally was he was into like the anti-establishment side of it at all, or did he just like the experience? Because I guess at the time, you mentioned that his dad didn't like it.
Right. So at that time
was that a thing for him?
I think definitely that time it was kind of like a little bit of an outsiders type of thing, surfing. It wasn't a lot of people didn't really approve of it.
Yeah.
A lot of the kids doing it were troublemakers.
Yeah, sure. It was an outlet, wasn't it?
Yeah, and he definitely ran with a group of troublemakers as
Right.
a kid, and they got into trouble. And he's got some good stories. Most of them he won't tell me.
Yeah, right. It sounds like I need to get him on here.
Yeah.
Right. So that was the influence. So when you boys got to the age, you're like, you see your dad surfing, you're like, you want a bit of that? Because you've spoken a lot, you boys, about the influence of your dad across all areas of your life, right?
Yeah. I mean, he kind of just led the way, and we wanted to be like him. So, yeah, he was just a big influence on us. Everything that he liked, we liked, and when you're that age, I guess it is. I don't know. We had one of those dads where he just had that effect on us, where we just kind of wanted to do whatever he was doing. He worked a lot, so we just got to hang with him on the weekends, and that's when he'd usually take us surfing or fishing or whatever it was. He just had that. He had that charisma for us as kids. That we just were like wanted to do what he did.
Yeah, and he instilled this love of the outdoor lifestyle in you. Then basically,
definitely
the pursuits that you still kind of live by today.
For sure.
Yeah. So he sounds like a really strong character. Has it ever been sort of difficult to live up to that? In ways, yes. But he was very proud of us, and we kind of, with the whole surf thing, I think we all went beyond our expectations a little, and he was so supportive. Insofar as the success that you achieved.
Yeah.
Right.
And then as far as just a human, as being, living up to my dad, I don't know. He didn't give off that like you have to do this or you have to be good at what you do or anything like that. So it was pretty easy to be a son of his, I would say. It wasn't like a pressure situation.
He just supported you guys by the sounds of it in what you wanted to do.
Yeah, but he still does have this kind of demands respect without even trying wherever he goes,
Right.
Which I don't know that I have that. It's just one of those, certain people have that.
Yeah, like one of those kind of charisma / aura things going on.
So he just has one of those personas, I would say.
Yeah. So you're getting into surfing, you're starting to get better at it. At what point did you I'm going to say the three of you, because you've always been a unit, right?
Right.
What point did you start thinking, there's something in this? We can see a world beyond like California, and maybe we can pursue a career or a living. Mm-hmm. What point did that start?
I would say
happening?
pretty early on, in our late teens, we're like, all right, we're gonna go for this. We're gonna try to be professional surfers. And at that stage, there was like, to us, that just meant to be, have surfboards and be able to travel. Like the financial part of it was nothing. Like we were just like,
if we can surf more.
I don't think we had this like vision of it turning into what it has for us. Kind of a life and a career beyond surfing.
Yeah.
So the early days it was like, we want to be pro surfers, and if that meant just having enough food on the table and enough surfboards to ride, and then maybe some travel fund to go wherever we could go to, surf some amazing waves. So it was very, I think it was pretty short-sighted in the beginning.
Yeah.
But just fun hog type of mentality.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, early 20s, that's what you want, isn't it?
Yeah.
You want to like go surfing, skating, snowboarding, whatever it is. That's the motivation, isn't it?
Exactly. And then as things progressed, I think my older brother Chris was kind of instrumental in making good decisions for all three of us and keeping us on the right line and aligning us with the right sponsors or people that could continue to support us.
Finding a direction.
Yeah.
Because in the early days, what careers would you have looked up to and aspired to?
Outside of surfing?
No, in surfing. You know what I mean? Like when you're like in this age, like late teens, 20s, you probably like, reading every magazine, watching every film.
Yeah.
You're probably thinking like, that guy's got it going on. We should try and do that. Like, was there anything like that? Was there anyone that you aspired, like role models that you kind of thought that's something we could do? Well, I guess the lifestyle, really, rather than actually like a surfer,
Yeah, well, honestly, one of the cool things that happened is my brother Chris started doing surf films, and that seemed like, hey, this could be something that could go beyond just surfing, is doing some film work, And
yeah, okay.
I would say, I don't know where Chris came up with that, but he pretty early on made a movie called Thicker Than Water.
Yeah.
And it was well received. And then, so for me, being the second oldest, I was like, wow, well, that's all, that could be something that we could continue to work on down the road when surfing's not the number one priority,
So had he had any background in it before?
No.
Right. So
he just always had a liking for it and always would try to have a camera rolling, when it was the old VHSs or whatever.
Sure.
Like he was very into shooting surfing and whatever else. We always had a camera in hand type of guy.
So and just completely self-taught, just like I'm going to do that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And which is another thing that I wanted to ask you about, because that seems another theme really for you lads. Like, if you look at your career, I'm going to say, but like surfer, director, there's a huge list, and it seems that one of the things is that you're all pretty happy to throw yourselves at new challenges or experiences and kind of just almost like work it out, like that's where we want to get to. We can do that. Let's just work out how you do it. Is that kind of fair to say?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's always been a funny one to explain my job description or what I do, because it's a lot of different little things.
What do you say if you meet somebody that doesn't know anything about you? What's your line? At
this point, I just say filmmaker.
Yeah, easy one.
I have always had a hard time with, even when I was in the middle of my pro surfing career, if someone asked me what I did, and I would hate to say a professional surfer.
Yeah.
Just because
I've never heard of you.
Yeah. And I just...
Do you know Kelly Slater?
Yeah. And it just seemed like one of those things where a lot of people might say that weren't a professional surfer, so I didn't want people to think I was... It's just a funny job title.
It's a bit like self-aggrandizing, isn't it?
Totally. That was always a little bit challenging one, so I'm happy to say film director now. I say I work for Patagonia and do a lot of things for them, and one of the main things we do is film, and that's usually what I say these days. Yeah.
But you always had that willingness to experiment. I guess that's what I'm getting at. As a trio, it was always like, we can.
Yeah, and I guess it was like I think it was just like being caring and being involved with everything that surrounded us. Wanting to give input and wanting to be a part of, like when we went to Patagonia, it was the clothing, the surfboards, the wetsuits, that just the whole look of everything we were doing. We were very happy to dig our hands into all of it and any of it, and to help shape it creatively, I think. Yeah. I think that's just like, I don't know, selfish instinct of ours, I guess.
Selfish, right?
You're like, want it to be the way you want it. Maybe, I don't know.
Well, it's just, I guess you could call it selfish, but if you've got a vision, got an idea, and you know a way of seeing it through, then it's a fine line, isn't it?
Yeah,
really, between I
don't know if selfish is quite the right word, but just eager.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
eager
Driven's better,
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah.
Driven's less harsh.
Yeah.
Yeah, less self-judgmental. Yeah. So you did get on the tour, obviously.
Yes.
And you did, how many years were you on the tour?
So I did the qualifying tour for a long time, and then I finally qualified for the tour, but then I broke my ankle
Right.
just before the start of the first year of the, it was the WCT back then, now
Sure.
it's the WSL. So then I kind of had to sit out the first event or two with the broken ankle, and then I ended up having, not a great year and not requalifying. But it was also that tipping point for me where I was like, all right, you know what, I'm ready to kind of do the next thing, I feel.
Right.
And I just felt like I was good and I won events, but I also wasn't the best competitively, and I knew that wasn't somewhere where I could be happy and
to keep doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
I could, and part of the reason was because I wasn't happy with the results I was getting all the time,
Yeah,
It's fun. It's great when you're winning, but when you're doing average or losing, it's
tough
really,
environment, I imagine.
Yeah. So I kind of realized I wasn't cut out to be a top 10 surfer in the world, and that was kind of easy for me to be like, okay, I've gotten as far as I can get here, and I'm gonna, go on to do something else.
So you weren't bothered by that realization? Maybe that sounds like a strange question, but
no,
you put that quite matter-of-factly because, obviously you've worked your whole life, as it were, to get to this position, and then that, for a lot of people, especially a lot of athletes, that's a big admission, isn't it?
Oh yeah. I mean, I remember making the decisions, and then after doing that for as long as I did, I was like, okay, well, what am I gonna do now?
Yeah, exactly. How old were you then?
How old was I then? So it was 2000-ish, 2001. So I must have been 30. Is that right? Like, I'm 44 now. So.
I'm 42. You start forgetting, don't you?
Yeah. So
as soon as you get over 40, it's like, I don't even fucking know how old I am.
So I was like 30, I think.
Right.
Something like that.
So it's a real sort of crossroads, though, isn't it?
Yeah. No, I was a little younger, I think.
Right. But either way, it's a point where you need to make a decision, right? So
yeah. No, it was a big deal for sure. I was 100% good with it, which was nice. I wasn't on the fence. But then I had been for the previous 6 years. I'd had a calendar of my schedule every year of what I was doing, and I had this challenge that I was, excited about taking on. And then so when you quit that competition and you quit that whole scene, then you got to kind of reinvent what you want to do. And for me at that point, I just wanted to travel to destinations and kind of go on surf adventures and find unsurfed waves. So I had a pretty nice thing to fall back onto. That worked out well for me after, but it was definitely a lot different than the competition. Had to kind of rewire myself to
change your pace.
Yeah,
change your lifestyle.
Exactly.
And did you get the support to do that straight away from sponsors and industry?
I did. I think I did. I think there was some people that were a little let down and would have liked to see me continue to compete, but then I think that my brothers and I always had a little something that people saw in us that was not competition. So in ways,
this thing that we talked about earlier, this different association with surfing, it's always been there, right?
Yeah,
so
I think it's always been there. So it was kind of a move that made sense in ways as well.
Yeah, and does this sort of coincide with, you said that the three of you were thinking, okay, like, what's the bigger picture?
Right.
Yeah. So is this kind of happening at the same time?
Yeah, I think a few years after I quit the tour was when we started like trying to figure out the next 5 years, the next 10 years, and what direction we were going to go in. And it wasn't long after that the whole Patagonia thing came up.
Yeah. So the travel years, let's call them. You got around, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So what's some of those experiences that you look back on now? Because there's been some pretty obscure trips, right?
Oh man, some crazy trips. I ended up doing a lot of trips to the colder regions just because a lot of them were just completely unsurfed.
Yeah.
So I went up to Kamchatka, Russia, Iceland, Norway, a lot of trips to Alaska and Canada. I kind of was attracted to those places for some reason. I don't mind the cold, and I just felt like there's a little more adventure there.
I was about to say,
beauty as well with the ocean and the orcas and the bears and camping out there. There's some, I just rather than go to like super tropical destination, which I'd done a lot of. So at that point, I was really kind of excited to go to those far north or south destinations and see and it was kind of nice too because Patagonia were making wetsuits and making suits for those harsh conditions.
Yeah.
So kind of fit perfectly. And also just with the gear at Patagonia, being able to utilize the gear for those really cold conditions and research and testing that stuff.
Yeah.
Just really made sense to go to those northern or southern destinations.
Yeah. So it's became about, again, the experience, the wider experience. Like, do you like having to work harder for it?
Let's see, do I like working harder for it? I mean, I appreciate definitely something that takes effort, and at the end of the day, you feel like you've accomplished something. Like, so I guess so. Yeah, I guess so. Going up there, going to those destinations where no one's at, it's kind of working harder for it, but it's also just a different experience of being on your own out there and not being in a crowded lineup or being away from a normal surf destination. There's some aspect of that I liked as well.
Yeah. Are you still getting the chance to travel as much as you'd like, or have things changed now? Because you're a dad now, right?
Yeah, so I got 2 kids.
Yeah.
And, have been directing quite a few little things here and there. So
yeah. Busy schedule,
and I surf at home a lot. But I'm not dying to do the big surf trips like I used to, you know?
Yeah.
But that's good. I take my daughter surfing, and when that certain surf trip does come up, I'll go and enjoy it. But I'm kind of happily in a little different stage of life.
Yeah, that's a nice balance.
Yeah, it is.
To have competed in your 20s, traveled in your 30s, and then a new decade now.
Yeah.
And a new focus.
Definitely happy with where I'm at, and feel thankful, and still get some great waves, and that's lucky.
Yeah. So we should talk about your filmmaking.
Yeah.
Because obviously it's just another big part of what you've been doing the last few years.
Yeah.
Was that around the same time as your brother then was that an influence you thought, maybe I could start looking at this?
So yeah, Chris started with the filmmaking, and at that stage I would just help him out, like with whatever was going on. He knew he could kind of lean on my brother Dan and I to help him, whether it's carrying a tripod or giving thoughts on something he wants to shoot. So we were just very close to it all when Chris started doing it.
Yeah.
And then, as time went on, we continued to do that for a while, just kind of be around Chris's whole filmmaking scene. And then as time went on, eventually we started doing our own projects.
Yeah.
And I would say for me, the one that kind of makes sense in this whole story is the first one I did was a body surfing film.
Yeah.
And
I'll link to it in the website for sure, so people can see it if they've not.
Yeah.
Why did you choose body surfing?
So that's part of the story too, is like doing the surf competitions and being so like, okay, I gotta hit the lip 10 times on this wave, or I gotta do all these maneuvers. It was a really nice getaway from all that kind of hardcore surf / ripping stuff, and just body surfing just felt like such a pure way to ride waves, and kind of did bring me back to that childhood feeling of just riding waves. So I got I had the idea of doing a body surf film at that point, and that was kind of the first one I took on by myself without Chris. It was a wonderful experience, and felt like the film came out. I was proud of the film.
Yeah.
So that kind of kick-started me into the whole thing. But my brothers and I all, we talk a lot, whether it's one of their projects or ours, or sometimes we work on things together. We're still very close and bounce ideas off each other and be like, hey, come in the editing bay here and watch this. Does this work? Does this work for you? Is this good? What should I change? So it's pretty neat that we all do that together. And
the same, are you completely self-taught with the process of filmmaking?
Yeah, I am self-taught, and it's crazy because it's like I guess the experience of being just around it in the early days when the camera was on us helped us learn how the whole process worked.
Yeah, and then, often the way that, isn't it, with athletes?
Yeah,
get the interest through that experience, being on the other side.
Yeah, being on the other side and kind of getting some experience that way and realizing what needs to come together to make, some beautiful imagery.
Yeah,
and then the other part of it, as a director, I feel like you just got to be good at keeping your crew happy, and it's interesting. It's much more than just a creative idea. It's like coordinating this crew of people that you want to put all your, coordinating this crew of people to get along and be happy and see your vision and then make it happen, because the cinematographers we work with are so amazing.
Yeah.
Like a lot of times people think I'm shooting all that stuff, and I have shot some of it, but a lot of it, most of it, it's not my actual shot.
Yeah, there's a great, I think it's Steven Soderbergh quote, which I'm probably going to mangle, but I think it's something like a script is a collaborative note, and if you're lucky, everyone else will know how to read it, which kind of goes to the same thing that you're saying about it's a group effort, isn't it?
Yes,
basically, it's
definitely.
And people tend to think like it's the auteur kind of director thing with the vision, don't they?
Right.
So is that a big part of the job, basically keeping that vision together across as many people as possible?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it is about having that vision and then manipulating everything else to kind of make it happen.
Yeah.
And like,
Do you enjoy that? You enjoy that part of it?
I do. It can definitely
wrangling
it can definitely
people.
Be stressful at times.
Yeah.
And it can be stressful wrangling it all, and sometimes I'm like, I'm not cut out the best for this kind of multitasking. Should we wait a second?
No, that's all right. Don't mind a bit of background noise.
Sometimes I'm like, oh man, I'm not cut out for this kind of like crazy multitasking when shit's hitting the fan and you're trying to get it all done. But it seems to we get through it.
It's working.
Yeah.
And obviously, was Fish People the last project that you completed?
Fish People is the last big one I've completed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where did the idea come from?
The idea for Fish People, it just came from basically my own personal experiences and wanting to kind of tell that story, but not through me, just through other people that I felt like had these kind of life-changing experiences because of the ocean.
Yeah. Like, I mean, it seemed to me that the story was that obviously the common denominator is the ocean, and that was almost the, shit phrase, but the star of it in a way.
Right. Absolutely.
The relationship that people, very different people had with that, with the ocean, basically. Is that what you were trying to get across?
Definitely. Like the one thing that all 6 of these people had in common was their love for the ocean, and for each of them to be able to tell the story of why and how it affected them. And I would definitely say, the ocean is the star of the film.
Did you know each of the people in it?
I knew, I think I knew 4 of the 6.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we had a pretty long list of people, and there was a couple that I had never met before that we brought in, but a handful of them were ones that we knew. Yeah.
Yeah. So who'd you bring in? Like,
so Lynn Cox was the
crazy story. That
crazy, one. Yeah, open ocean, cold water swimmer.
Yeah. It's on the Bering Strait, right?
She did. It's
pretty next level.
Well, another one is the English Channel. I think she beat the men's and world record for the English Channel when she was like 15.
Yeah. I really enjoyed her part of it.
For me, that was like I was super excited to have her be a part of it because I felt like it fit so well, but it was very different than anything else in the film, you know?
Yeah, completely. Because, you know, obviously I guess most people that come to it are going to know Rasta, you know, probably know Kimmy.
Right.
And there is, you know, in each of the stories is something that you can grasp onto and recognise. But that's definitely quite a
little out of the
distinct
box. Right.
little story, isn't it?
Yeah.
So how scripted was the approach? Because I'm assuming that you know, went into it with an idea of the story that you were going to try and get out of it. Are you quite structured, or do you prefer to let your subjects kind of help you as it goes?
I think, you know, picking the right characters took a lot of research and thought, and then as far as scripted, you know, we definitely had a lot of ideas and things in mind for each character, but then I really, at the same time, you know, it's a documentary style film, and I feel like a lot of it's just going to unfold.
Yeah.
I was talking with someone last night about scripted films, and that's definitely out of my league. I feel like my strength would be telling stories as they happen, and
quite naturalistic.
Yeah, and definitely picking subjects that are interesting and have a story to tell. But I just feel like definitely the films, you know, we make plans where we're going to be, what we're going to do, what we're going to talk about, but I feel so much of it just comes to life naturally, and I don't try to over script it, that's for sure.
Yeah. So what's your next one? Can you talk about that? Presumably there's a plan on the go.
Yeah, I don't know. I actually don't know. Would definitely be tempted to make another body surf film. I could definitely do another film similar to Fish People, involving people in the ocean, you know. And then I have some other little film ideas going on right now that are totally different, like music and things like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
As in, explain that then. What's that?
Just like little film, little music series with musicians and songwriters and things like that.
Yeah, that's something that you're interested in?
Yeah, definitely.
Do you play yourself?
I do, a little bit, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that'd be a natural thing to look at.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah.
And what about away from the camera? Anything else going on in the near future?
Away from the camera, my wife and kids and I, we live on a ranch. So we have horses and cows and pigs and chickens and all that stuff. So
you're pretty busy.
So that keeps us busy, and I have a lot of fun riding horses back where we live and working with some of the old legendary ranchers out there and learning new skills. You know, like I've been around horses my whole life, but I still have a ton to learn. So I like that.
Right.
I like that learning curve of when you still have lots to learn.
Yeah.
There's something, the payoff's kind of fun, where with surfing I feel like I love it, but I don't get that kind of rush you get when you get those days where you're like, oh, I did it twice as good today as I did yesterday, and there's something about that.
Yeah, sure. So you're finding that in this area.
Yeah, exactly.
And is that, you know, you're consciously looking back at your own childhood and thinking,
sure,
this is like what we want to give to our kids as well?
I think so. I mean, I think I would say my brothers and I had a really kind of diverse upbringing, with living on a little farm type situation with animals, and just felt like it was a healthy way to grow up, and then just felt drawn back to it as I got older, and then in turn it's giving my kids a similar type of upbringing.
Yeah. Nice. And what are the brothers up to? The
brothers, so Dan is in Tahiti with Kimmy and Mark Healy on a spear fishing trip, which is pretty cool. I can't wait to hear how that goes.
Yeah, right.
And then Chris is he lives up by me in Central California, and he's working on film projects as well. And and he's building a house.
Right.
Yeah.
Nice.
Up on a property up there, so that's keeping him busy as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and do you think the three of you are always going to effectively be a package when it comes to the work that you're doing with surfing? And
I think as far in the surf world, I think we'll probably all, if we've stayed a package this long, we probably always will. I think that we're kind of but I think at the same time in other aspects of life, we're all kind of going out into our own little branches of what we like to do, and that's healthy, I think.
Yeah. Well, I got one more question for you.
Yeah.
Which is a travel one, actually.
Yeah.
It's something I always like to ask people that have done as much traveling as you have. Like, where's left?
Where's left to go?
Yeah, for you. There's got to be one place you never made it to.
You know what? It's funny because when the whole 180 South film went down, I was actually not with the guys when they're at Easter Island. So Easter Island's one that I want to go to that I haven't been to for sure. And then outside of that, I would just say in general, there's just places that still come up that are kind of unknown and special, and those are the ones I'd probably like to go to. Like, I don't have a list, but wherever I could, I just for sure, for some reason at this stage in the game, going to the well-known surf vacation areas is probably at the low end of the list. And anywhere we could go where like surfing's a part of it, but you're just seeing some amazing part of the world.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna surf Newquay later, right?
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. It should be fun.
Yeah, it's from one extreme to the other.
Perfect. Perfect.
Nice one, Keith.
Okay.
Thanks, man.
Pleasure talking to you.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
So there you go. That was my episode with Keith. And like I say, afterwards we went for a surf at Fistral, which was very good fun. Big thanks to Patagonia for hosting me down in Newquay, particularly Alex Weller, Yella Mull and Louise Briley Ingham. Also want to thank my friend Neil Thompson for his hospitality during that trip. And as usual, it was great to catch up with a lot of people down there. Great episode, eh? Quote I always find fascinating is the old F. Scott Fitzgerald one about there being no second acts in American lives. That's actually why I called the John Boyer episode way back when the second act. But yeah, whenever I hear a story like Keith's with its constantly regenerating evolution, I'm always reminded of that quote. Now, as ever, if you enjoyed it, let me know by hitting me up at podcast@wearelookingsideways.com or head over to my social channels, which you can find at www.wearelookingsideways.com. So yeah, as I said at the top, housekeeping corner time. I've been doing some chatting to brands and agencies, which, as I said, I've been exploring on Instagram and chatting about at the end of each episode recently. So yeah, I've got a few people pretty keen on getting involved in the podcast. So this little Patagonia trip was a bit of a road test for that one, really. How did I do? Was it natural? The little chat at the start. I kind of think it's all right, isn't it? Let me know if you have any great objections to that one. I mean, this gentle collaboration with Patagonia is really the mellowest form of quid pro quo that you get when you work with brands. In this case, I got my travel and accommodation paid for. I got time to meet and surf with Keith, and in return, we included a little bit of Patagonia messaging in what I'd like to think was the mellowest and most natural sounding way possible. If you consume any form of media in the world, you're spoon-fed stuff like this all day long. If it's done well, then hopefully it doesn't affect the editorial integrity and as a result, your enjoyment in any way. So do let me know what you thought about that by hitting me up by one of the aforementioned channels. I think I've talked about this before, but very briefly, again, I've turned down some more sponsorship recently of the buy this mattress. Honestly, they're dead good and I sleep on it myself. Form of scripted local radio ad involvement. That's a lot of people I've been approached by now to do those type of ads. I also got approached by Audio Boom to go on their platform. One of the things that they kind of offer is ad revenue. They pitch ads for you, and yeah, I think you're probably gathering it's not for me, that really. So I've turned those down yet again, which leaves a third way of doing it, with a way that might lead to money and cash and all that, and you know, help me keep this thing going as I've been talking about. And that's the branded content route. And that's the one I'm probably the most interested in, really. I've had a couple of chats with people about this. One of the suggestions that came up was to gently use the bonus episodes that I do as a branded forum through which to tell certain subtle paid for brand stories. A reference that came up a few times was Kilometre Zero, which I'm not actually that familiar with. I have had a listen, but it's the way that the guys behind the cycling podcast have got around it. Basically, every so often they do, I guess it'd be a bit similar to my bonus episodes that I do. They'll do one of them where it's quite clearly branded, and it's a story that they've agreed with the brand, but told in the same editorially sound way as the rest of the podcast. So, I mean, I'm quite interested in that, really. I think if it's done creatively and properly, I'm not sure I really see that much of a problem with that. Another brand has asked me to do bespoke episodes for their internal use, which is an interesting one, which I quite like the sound of. I mean, I think for me, ultimately, all this stuff's just a way of keeping the podcast the same, keeping the editorial integrity, and making sure I can keep on doing it. And if I do work with a brand, it's done in a way that's as clean, creative, and as elegant as possible, really. So yeah, I just think it's interesting to be really transparent about all this, rather than just take the mattress / razor / beer money, bang it on there, and sort of fuck you lot, really. So yeah, if you got any feedback, let me know. podcast@wearelookingsideways.com, or do me a direct message on Instagram, because that seems to be what a lot of people are doing right now. All right, that's it for me. Hope you enjoyed this one. I am off to get on with my day. Not a lot planned. Probably hang out with a new dog, do some work. So yeah, nice one.